everybody, and welcome to the training session on Office Health and Safety. My name is Verity Jones and I'm a Health and Safety Officer for Safety First Limited, and I'm here to talk to you today about Office Health and Safety. Is that okay?
Yes.
Great. So a little bit about myself. I have been a Health and Safety Officer for the past 10 years, initially specialising in the completion of risk assessments in manufacturing environments. And now I use this experience to visit sites around the UK, such as this one, to aid in the prevention of workplace injuries. So firstly, I'm just going to cover a couple of ground rules, just so that we can check everybody's learning environment secure. And then we can look at the objectives for today's session. So does that sound alright?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so main ground rule, mobile phones. If you just make sure that they're on silent, and if you do need to make an emergency call, then just let me know. Then you can pop out so that we're, don't disturb anybody else's learning. Okay. Yeah. And also toilets down there through the double doors on your left, and then next door to that is a kitchen area where we've got some water, some tea, and some coffee, and some biscuits if you need to refuel after the session. If during the session you feel like you need a break or anything, just let me know, but I won't be keeping you very long. It should be between sort of 25 and 35 minutes. So is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. And finally, for your safety, the fire exit is back through the door we came through, straight down the corridor, and then outside at assembly point A. I have checked, and there are no scheduled fire alarm tests for today, so if the fire alarm does go off, then we kind of need to move and await instruction at assembly point A. So, okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
And then, now, from the attendance form submitted prior to the session, I can see that there was no special assistance requirements requested for this session. Has anything changed with this? Are you both comfortable? Can you see, hear me? Yeah?
Yeah, all good.
You okay? The air conditioning is on, but if you get too warm or too cold, just let me know. We can try and work that one out. Brilliant. Okay, and then just the final thing that I want to say, that I say to all of my sessions, is that it's completely relaxed, this is session, so feel free to ask any questions. If at any point you require any clarification on anything discussed today. Safety is key for everybody, so there's never a silly question, so please speak up if you need to.
Okay, well.
Great. Okay, so obviously today we're going to be covering office health and safety. This will include the risks that we face in mainly an office environment, and what those implications of those risks could be, and how to avoid them. And also I'll be briefly covering on risk assessments, so how to fill a basic one in. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so the main objectives of today's session are understanding the risks in a health and safety risk in an office environment, the cause and prevention of those risks. So what are the general ones that we come across, and what can we do to prevent those? What a risk assessment is, so just sort of what we need to know, the main facts about a risk assessment, and how to fill one in. I provided you both with a training pack, which I can see that you've got there to accompany the session. Inside there's some blank paper for making some notes. There's also a copy of the slideshow that we'll be going through, the accompanying slides. And there's a blank risk assessment template in there, and also an answer sheet for the end of session quiz that we are going to complete. Don't worry, it's not a test, it's simply for me to gauge your understanding of the content we've covered, and if there's anything else I need to go back over. So, is that okay? Does that sound alright?
Yeah, it's fine.
Brilliant. Okay, so now for the scary bit for you both. Usually when I have a large group of people from different departments, I like to do an icebreaker exercise to get everyone relaxed and introduced. But as you two already work together and know your roles, I'd just like you to introduce yourself, what your role is, and if you want, you can give me an interesting fact about yourself. I think that'll get us nicely warmed up. Is that alright?
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to go first? Okay, Steve.
Hi, my name's Steve and I'm a material planner here at JCB. An interesting fact. I ain't got one.
Surely there must be something interesting about yourself. Have you got a strange tasting foods, maybe? You get any weird sandwich combinations?
Tuna and beetroot.
Oh, that sounds nice.
I think it's weird.
I think it's alright. But yeah, interesting fact. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Fred Tams. I work at JCB also. Been here 25 years and I'm senior material planning. I
Right.
work with him.
Yeah.
And my interesting fact, I managed to fall into a muck spreader when I was 5 years old and nearly died.
Oh! Is that an interesting fact?
It's true.
Well, at least we know that you did survive, seeing as you're still here.
Just.
Brilliant, lovely. Okay, so everything I've covered so far, are you happy with that? Everything okay?
Yes.
Brilliant. Right, okay, so let's get started. Working in an office environment, it's pretty common for office-based employees to have a relaxed attitude towards health and safety, in particular the office environment. You may assume from the safety of an office there's no glaringly obvious high risks around you. Can you give me any sort of high risk hazards? Not in an office, but just in general, in the broad sense of work that you can think of.
Wet floors.
Yeah, just anywhere outside of work, house and around.
Vehicles on site.
Yeah. Okay, so if I give you an environment or a role, can you give me a hazard? So the one I've done an example for is tree surgeon. My first thought when someone says tree surgeon to me, in terms of risk, would be falling out the tree. Makes sense, doesn't it? What about a building site?
Things falling on top of you.
Yeah.
Falling off a ladder.
Yeah, perfect. What about a steel fabricator?
Heat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weight on it, you dropped it.
Yeah. That would be pretty awful. What about fishermen?
Drowning.
Yeah. it's pretty much kind of all that can really happen to you, I suppose. Yeah. Or I liked this example. I get some strange answers with this one. What about a grave digger?
Falling in the grave.
Yeah. You would think that's the most obvious one, but I've had some strange ones.
Crushed.
Yeah. I've also had zombies suggested. No. Okay. So now I want you to think about an office environment. Obviously, it's nowhere near as deadly as a grave digger or a tree surgeon. So normally we have sort of desks, computers, toilets, kitchens, cloakroom area. I'm going to give you a minute or so to think about any potential hazards you might come across in your office environment. With your blank paper that you've got there, if you just jot yourself down a couple, and we'll go through them on the chart there and just see if you can get any that are not on my list.
I doubt it.
This is obviously just based in an office environment.
Just a couple or a list.
No, just a couple's fine. If you've got a list for them, then that'd be brilliant. Got a right list going on. Think of any more? Are you
Two.
alright? That's okay, don't worry. Hopefully by the end of the training session you'll have at least 5. Brilliant, right. Okay, so what have you got for me?
I've got cuts
Mm-hmm.
from bumping into open drawers or cutting yourself on paper.
Yeah. Paper cuts. Like that one. Yeah.
I've also got trips on electric cables
Yeah.
or even floors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've got heat exhaustion from it, windows and the sun coming in through the windows.
Mm.
Yeah. What have you got for me, Steve?
I also have cables.
Yeah.
I've got as well, obviously the offices need to be cleaned, they could be mopped and swept on the wet
Yeah.
floor.
That's cool. There. You got me? That is all of yours? Right, okay. Well, yeah, perfect. So straight away, we can see a little bit of a pattern here, can't we? So drips, cables, uneven floors, slipping over. Yeah. What about ergonomic hazards? Maybe if your chair's not set up properly. So strains, shoulder strains. Yeah.
Repetitive strain.
Yeah. And maybe, what about hot drinks?
Mm.
Yeah, and objects on
Spilling.
desks, spills.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
spills
burns.
and burns, yeah. So, I think that would probably come under here, wouldn't it, hot drinks? Again, danger side, or any drinks to be fair, any sort of liquid.
We've also got the use of the VDUs and eye strain.
Yes, perfect. Right, okay, I'm thinking about office cleanliness. What do you think carries the most bacteria in the office?
Keyboard.
Yeah. So they're not always the cleanest environments, do you think, really? So,
Keyboard's probably the dirtiest thing you ever touch.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. I think most of those. If you think about cuts and open drawers, you've also got sort of trapping injuries in doors, drawers, things like that. Be quite common. Okay, so out of those, what we think that we're in a nice safe environment in an office, but it's actually quite hazardous. So which do you think is sort of the most common point that we've come across so far?
Slips, trips and falls.
So the top 5 most common workplace injuries in an office environment. Number 1, slips, trips and falls. It is the most common, most seen frequently, and so on. Number 2, lifting injuries, so people lifting up boxes that they shouldn't be, or I suppose desk drawers and things like that, moving things around. Number 3, workstation injuries, so we touched on that with ergonomic injuries, and also eye strains. 4, falling objects. I suppose if you open a cupboard up and things aren't put in properly and it falls on you, no good. And then again, strains. So I think strains could be quite broad. It maybe could cover ergonomic, but also movement in your desk and so on. But yeah, so slips, trips and falls are number 1. So that is going to be our main focus for today. So falls are the most common cause of office injury and account for the greatest number of disabling accidents. People are 2.5 times likely to be injured from a fall in an office than in any other workplace. And 29% of all workplace injuries reported by the Health and Safety Commission are falls. So obviously I've got some data here for you. This is from the Riddle accounts. But yeah, people falling over things. So if you think about the hazards that we could come across that we've already mentioned on here, so cables, loose cables, uneven flooring, yeah. Obstacles such as empty boxes, handbags, portable heaters, so if somebody's got a heater under the desk, I can't imagine they'll be allowed in your workplace, but in more sort of traditional workplaces, people used to keep the heaters under the desk, but I don't think you would maybe have much cause for them here, with it being nice and air conditioned, and it sounds terrible, but women's handbags, if they haven't got somewhere secure to put them, tripping over those. You mentioned here open drawers. So in terms of, obviously you mentioned it in terms of cuts, which yes, but you're likely to sustain a cut from tripping over an open desk drawer. Poor and inadequate lighting, that's something we didn't actually cover on our list. So if an area, say a walkway is poorly lit and so on, that can lead to massive hazards. And then spillages, wet floors, hot drinks, again, so we've covered that already. Brilliant. So what can we do to prevent it? So it's fairly much common sense, do you think? Removing loose cables. So any wires and cables that are loose, they need to be fixed to walls or desks. If they do have to go across the floor or across a walkway, then they need to be bunched and contained, and then they need to be covered with hazard markings covering the covering, if that makes sense, so that your eyes are drawn to it, it's there ahead of you, you can see that the floor becomes uneven because there's a cable cover, but it's people's eyes are drawn to it, so that, I mean, people can still trip over it, but you know, at least you've tried to eliminate the risk slightly. Obviously repair any damaged flooring, any carpets, so where the edges have maybe lifted, they need to be sealed down, again with hazard marking tape, but really they need to be fixed, so it's just a temporary fix doing that. But people can so easily trip over corners of carpets and stuff that's lifted. So again, fairly obvious, remove obstacles. Remove any obstacles from walkways. This includes handbags, boxes, or anything else that you can trip over. Pretty sure I know myself, I can trip over my own feet, but you can't remove those. Not only does this prevent, obviously, trip hazards, but in terms of fire safety, massively important. You don't want people tripping over boxes if there's a fire and everyone's trying to get out. And then, again, common sense, clean up any spillages immediately. The area should be cleaned up and a hazard sign put over the area to make anyone aware of potential hazard. Just because you've cleaned it up, it doesn't mean that the floor's not still wet. So hazard will help cover that. Right. So thinking about risk. Are we okay so far? By the way.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yes.
I think in terms of safety, it's common sense, isn't it? If you see something in the way, pick it up. But thinking about risk. So if we think about the risks.
Still one question from the last bit.
Yeah, of course.
You said something about a riddle. What's riddle?
I'll cover that in a bit.
Okay.
Right, thinking about risk. So if we think about the risks, we can take action before an injury or an accident occurs. So are either of you parents?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
No.
No, okay. So if you think about when you've got your child around you or children, as parents you'd be constantly risk assessing situations or environments for your child's safety. For example, you would automatically check before you let them cross a road, or yourself, not just children, you would check yourself, but generally you risk assess an area that is safe for a child. So if they're going to a play area, you'd have a quick scout around and check that the seesaw they're going on is safely attached and so on. But many people take their own environment for granted. So, for example, your office, it's an area that you feel comfortable in, so you just kind of get used to it. I'm pretty sure that you don't walk in every morning and check the area and check it's safe for yourself. So, if we think about risk, all companies are expected to complete a risk assessment. It's a legal requirement. So we've got the actual definition here. If you're an employer or self-employed, it's a legal requirement for every employer or self-employed person to make an assessment of the health and safety risks arising out of their work. The purpose of the assessment is to identify what needs to be done to control health and safety risks. So obviously, I don't expect you to remember all that, it's quite lengthy. So I've just summarised it down here. So obviously, it's a legal requirement if you have 5 or more employees. Generally speaking, even if you have three or four employees, people still do it. It needs to be done. but it is actually legal if you have 5 or more. And it basically identifies what needs to be done to control the risk, if there is any risks. Obviously some jobs are more risky than others, but as we're focusing on an office environment, it just needs to be a case of that any risks there need to be removed. So, if we look on this, I've given you a copy of this, it's a blank copy, but I'm going to show you how to complete your own risk assessment from your own work areas and environment, so that you can take this away and complete it for yourself. So a basic risk assessment would look like this. It's got an area where you can identify your hazards, identify who can be harmed and how, so what the risk to that person is. Identify what controls you can put in place to prevent the hazard. And then obviously when you're going to do this by, so in most cases it's immediately, if you identify a risk it needs to be dealt with straight away. And then review your document, just oh right, okay, let's check that has been done. If you maybe put a week on something and then came back and just checked that it has actually been done and that the risk has been eliminated. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. So we're just going to do a little brief group activity. What I'm going to show you in a minute is an image of a work environment, and working together as a pair. I want you to just maybe identify one point on the blank risk assessment for me out of this image that you see, and just see if you can fill your risk assessment in as much as you can, and then we can go through it. Is that okay? So,
Yeah.
ta-da! I've already done an example one for you. It's in your packs. If you go through your packs, it should be at the bottom of your pack there. There you go. So I've done you an example, an area that I picked out of this image. But if you just if you work together, and if you just want to pick something that I'm sure there's plenty of dangers in that for you, and just briefly fill it in. But you can work as a pair, it's absolutely fine.
Open drawer at the bottom.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Overflowing bin.
Well, you can do them all if you want, but I think maybe the time constraints, if we could just do one today, that'd be brilliant.
Open drawer.
Right, so if you want to look at what could happen, well, first of all, who could be injured?
Operative. Office work. Bring injured.
Oh.
Controls we can touch
Close it.
Yeah, like I say, most of it is common sense.
When reading.
Yeah. Go the next day. Just make sure they're carrying out.
Right, are you happy with that?
Yes.
Okay, so can you talk me through it then? What out of those many hazards did you pick?
Drawer. Open drawer.
Yeah, brilliant. And who did you identify that could be harmed?
I'll put operative or office worker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What could happen to
Anybody.
them?
Walk into it.
Yeah.
Walk into it.
Trip over it.
Ow. Yeah. Yeah. And what controls did you put in place?
Close. So maybe put signs up to tell people to close them. Keep drawers closed.
Yeah, it's a sort of little reminder until it becomes a habit. Yeah, that's good. Good. And when did you suggest it should be done by?
Straight away.
Yeah, definitely. And have you got a review date on it?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's something that needs to become a habit. But you made a very fair point actually about putting notes on drawers. If it helps people and reminds them, then yeah, that'd be a great idea. Brilliant. Okay, so do you think you've now got sort of a better idea of office health and safety?
Yeah,
Yeah?
quite
Yeah.
obvious really, isn't it? But sometimes you just need to point it out.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think sort of the main areas that you've identified today?
Well, tripping over the floor,
Yeah.
Slips and strips.
Yeah, okay. So offices, although are considered generally low risk, are actually quite hazardous. I think that's safe to say, isn't it? We've identified that slips, trips and falls are sort of the main cause of injury when you look at an office environment, but there is quite a lot of others that you can come across. Do you think that we've maybe identified sort of considering risk? Is it something that you'll maybe now think about a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Right. And do you feel comfortable in terms of completing a risk assessment?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now for the fun bit. So in your learning pack, there is a little quiz sheet. So at the back it should be underneath there. Yeah, it's really straightforward. You'll be absolutely fine. We can do it together if you want. Would you prefer to do that, or are you happy to steam ahead and do it yourself? What do you think?
Circle the answer. I'll just go through it ourselves.
Okay, cool. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, which of the following is a common cause of slips in the office? Who wants to give me their answer?
Wet floors.
Perfect. So, you're going to slip over on a spilled drink, aren't you? Definitely. True or false, it's a legal requirement of an organisation of 5+ employees to complete a risk assessment.
True.
Well. True or false, falls are the most common cause of office-based injury.
True.
Well, we're doing well, aren't we? Which of these could be a potential risk in the office?
All of them.
Is that what you got as well, Steve? Brill. There's no problem if you haven't. And which of these could be deemed as a trip hazard? What we're tripping over?
Well, put wet floors.
Well, yeah,
Which
empty
is more
boxes.
of a slip.
Empty boxes.
And empty boxes.
Yeah. I think you would. Yeah, I think you'd trip over a box rather than wet floor, but yeah. Yes, basically the same thing. Brilliant. Okay, so are you happy with everything that we've covered today?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just have another look at the objectives to just check that you're happy that we've covered them all. So understand the health and safety risks in an office environment. So do you think we've covered that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And what some of the causes of those risks would be and how to prevent them?
Yeah.
Okay. And now you know what risk assessment is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
brilliant. And how to complete one?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So, do you have any questions for me?
I do. Thinking about the risk assessment you've provided,
Yeah.
could I use it use it for, I think I could use it for, I'm a football coach.
Mhm.
I think it could be useful for the kit rooms. Would this be suitable?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this can be used in any environment. So yeah, a kit room would be perfect if you were trying to identify, I would assume, people's kits on the floor and so on. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that would be perfect. It doesn't have to be in an office environment. What I have provided is at the back of your presentation copy, there is some resources here. So Riddle that you raised earlier, I didn't actually put that on there, but on here there's health and safety, government-led website, legislation, so the direct page for the Health and Safety at Work Act, and then the British Safety Council and Saferpedia. So these are other resources that could help you. What I've also got for you here is a handout. So this is from the Health and Safety Executive, and this is their slips and trips mapping tool. So it's basically the same thing, but in a little bit more detail if you were interested in to go into more detail. So it has a risk assessment on there, and it basically directs you how to fill one in if you want to cover a larger environment and so on. What I would like you to do for me as sort of some follow-up work to this session, just so that I can sort of gauge your learning, is that with the blank copy of the risk assessment that you've got, I'd like you to just sort of observe in your own workplace and raise some points for me. I'd just like you to fill it in. And the next 4 weeks, if you do that, and then just send it over to me, just so that I can sort of confirm that you've understood like what we've covered in this session. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. And like I say, I mean, by all means, if you want to use the Health and Safety Executive mapping tool, then absolutely feel free. But just sort of in the next 4 weeks, if you just get something over to me, so I can just gauge how well you've taken things on board in the session. So, have you got any more questions for me or anything?
No, okay, thanks.
Brilliant, lovely, that's great. Okay, well, like I say, refreshments through there for you, and I hope it wasn't too painful.
No. Very well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.